Season 3, No More Nice series. This episode is entitled The Grief of Outgrowing Emotional Survival. What happens when we stop performing the versions of ourselves that kept everyone else comfortable? What happens when we stop over-explaining, over-accommodating, over-functioning, over-giving, people-pleasing, emotionally shape-shifting and tap dancing and singing and performing, or constantly trying to maintain connection through our usefulness? Because healing sounds beautiful until relationships begin to change, until silence feels louder, until certain people pull away, until we realize some relationships, friendships, dating relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships, we're only connected to our performance and not our presence. And honestly, sometimes healing feels extremely lonely and isolating before it feels freeing, especially when the nervous system has spent years and decades confusing chaos with connection, over performance with love, and emotional exhaustion with belonging. Today, we're talking about grief, identity shifts, kind assertiveness, nervous system recalibration, relational loss, and what happens after we stop abandoning ourselves to maintain relationships, friendships, dating relationships. What happens when we stop? Hey y'all, I'm Madison Samone Chase, also known as Miss Chase. I was raised by an incredible single mom who is my biggest fan and my BFF, my best friend for real. I am a celebrity certified personal trainer, fitness and wellness expert, and sports and entertainment media host. I was born in Fort Worth, raised in Dallas, Texas, and built in Los Angeles, California, the city of angels. I trained at Juilliard in New York City with School of American Ballet, becoming the world's only 3-time ESPN Miss Fitness champion, appearing in over 450 fitness DVDs. Yes, that's a lot of DVDs. And the first of those 450 DVDs was led by celebrity trainer and the GOAT, Gunnar Peterson, known for training the Kardashian family. As a celebrity certified personal trainer myself, I've worked with Robert Pattinson of Twilight and Batman, Chris Tucker of Rush Hour, and Amber Riley of Glee, Dancing with the Stars, and The Masked Singer champion. And as a sports and entertainment media host, I've had the joy of interviewing Richard Branson, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Emma Stone, Viola Davis, Tyler Perry, and Tiana Taylor, to name a few. I share my story to honor the millions of sacrifices my mom planted in me so that I could blossom and flourish into the woman I am still becoming. So if you are listening at home, pull up a real chair, or if you're listening online, a digital chair, and grab yourself some hot herbal tea, and welcome to my cozy home of Cut to the Chase at 8. Now C2TC8, H.E.R circle, which stands for High Performing, Empowered, and Ready to Thrive Circle. A 15-minute micro-learning moment for macro living transformations. And I am so overjoyed that you are here, because this is where we explore life together, spirit, mind, and body, through lived experiences, yours and mine, and intentional growth. So join me daily for just 15 minutes, twice a day at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central, because this is your daily pause for a cause, for clarity, for wellness, for allowing grace in this space and this season that we're in, whatever season that is, and for intentional decision making. Each episode, my offer to you is 3 keys and 1 reflection question. And my prayer and my hope is that the 3 keys are something practical, something grounded, and something we could sit with and carry with us throughout our day. So let's take a breath together. We're going to inhale for 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's cut the noise. Let's get clear. Let's get ready, let's get set, and let's grow. One thing I am beginning to realize is that healing does not change us emotionally. It changes our relationships. It changes our communication. It changes our nervous system. It changes what we tolerate. It changes what feels emotionally safe for us. It changes the versions of ourselves that people were once familiar and very comfortable with. And oftentimes, that could feel like grief. Not because healing is not necessary, but because parts of our identity were built around emotional survival. Yeah. Parts, right, of our identity, not all. Because some of us learned how to survive relationships through over explaining, over functioning, over giving, over helping, over accommodating, tap dancing, singing a song for somebody, and showing up because people knew about who you know and your resources and things that you could give to them, or emotionally shape-shifting. And many of us became emotionally agreeable, not because we lacked intelligence, strength, or discernment, because somewhere along the lines and along the way, connections or being connected, or so we thought a connection, it started to feel tied to performance or doing something or over giving, all of those things, over helping, over sharing. So we learned how to preserve relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, before we learned how to preserve ourselves. And honestly, when we stop performing niceness, some relationships naturally begin to change or fade away. Because some people were connected to that version of you and I that overextended, that overgave, and not necessarily the healed version of us that learned kind assertiveness and that's still learning how to be spontaneously assertive. And that realization can sting. It can. Especially when we realize some relationships were connected to our performance and not our presence. And some people miss access to our overfunctioning more than they actually miss us, because they never really knew us and never were concerned with getting to know us. And that is a hard pill to swallow, and it is a hard thing to sit with, because healing often reveals which relationships depended on our silence, our emotional labor, our emotional agreement, our constant availability, our people pleasing, our over accommodating, or our inability to say no. And sometimes when those things change, the relationship, the friendship, even people that you've known for a really long time, those things begin to change too. Not because we're cruel, not because we're cold, but because we stopped abandoning ourselves to maintain a connection that was never a connection based on truth and honesty. It was based on a transaction and what we could give. And one thing I'm learning in this season is that kind assertiveness feels very different from performative niceness. Kind assertiveness is not aggression, it's not hardness, it's not rude or emotional detachment. It's grounded honesty with softness. And sometimes, depending on how you look, people can put a narrative or a stereotype on you and give you labels of what society says assertiveness looks like when it comes packaged the way that I'm packaged. It's learning how to remain connected to ourselves while communicating honestly with others. And honestly, that could feel physically uncomfortable at first, because the nervous system can mistake unfamiliar peace for danger, when in chaos, emotional monitoring over performance, and hypervigilance that once felt normal. Because some of us spent years, decades, monitoring people's tones, people's moods, people's silence, people's disappointment, people's reactions or lack thereof, and just downright avoidance. And sometimes people's emotional shifts in order to maintain some sense of belonging and or community that never they tolerated you instead of celebrating you. And that is exhausting. And when we stop emotionally managing everyone else's comfort, the nervous system initially feels exposed. And it's not because healing or taking the journey to heal is dangerous, but because it is unfamiliar. It is new territory that we are charting. And sometimes that could feel lonely at first, because loneliness during healing is a real thing. Isolation during healing is real, because healing interrupts familiar patterns. And some conversations that we're used to having, they become quieter. Some invitations become fewer. Some dynamics begin shifting. Some relationships become uncomfortable, and sometimes they just cease. And some people may not know how to relate to us once we stop emotionally overextending and being nice. Because overfunctioning often created externally peaceful relationships while internally exhausting the person maintaining them, which is you and I. And maybe this is the real grief. We are not only grieving people. Sometimes we are grieving the versions of ourselves that survived by being emotionally agreeable and or doormats for people. The version that kept the peace, avoided discomfort, avoided conflict, that over-explained, that overgave, that tap danced, that gave too much, that was willing to share resources when there was no reciprocity. And we performed niceness, and we were nice and disconnected from ourselves in order to maintain a connection and or belonging. And sometimes healing may initially feel lonely and isolating before it begins feeling free, that you are free to be exactly who you were called to be. Because maybe healing is not becoming harder. Maybe healing is finally becoming honest enough to stop abandoning ourselves. Which brings me to the 3 keys. Key number 1, healing often changes relationships, because some relationships were built around emotional survival patterns instead of mutual emotional health. When we stop over-functioning, over-explaining, over-giving, or emotionally shape-shifting, tap dancing, some relationships naturally begin recalibrating. And while that can sting a little bit, it's uncomfortable or isolating or lonely, it may also reveal which connections depended more on our performance than our authentic presence. Which brings me to key number 2. The nervous system can initially interpret healthy change as emotional danger, especially for people who spent years and decades emotionally monitoring environments in order to maintain safety, connection, approval, or belonging. Which means peace may initially feel unfamiliar. Boundaries may feel uncomfortable. Honesty may feel activating. And kind assertiveness may feel physically awkward at first. Not because our healing journey is hard or wrong, but because the body is adapting to new emotional experiences. Which brings me to key number 3. Kind assertiveness, it is not cruel. It is not rude. It's honesty without self-abandonment. And for many of us, this is the first time we are learning how to communicate honestly in real time, honor our needs, maintain our boundaries, and remain emotionally connected to ourselves at the same time. Healing is not becoming less loving. Healing is learning how to love others without consistently abandoning ourselves. The one reflection question: what relationships, emotional patterns, or identity roles in our lives may have been sustained more by overfunctioning, emotional performance, people-pleasing, or self-abandonment than by genuine mutual connection? So before you go, I just want to say thank you truly from the bottom of my heart for sharing this time with me. It has been an honor to sit with you and praying for grace in the space, in the season, whatever season you're in. And let's quickly revisit today's 3 keys. Key number 1, healing often changes relationships because some relationships were built around emotional survival patterns instead of mutual emotional health. Key number 2, the nervous system can initially interpret healthy change as emotional danger because the body is adapting to unfamiliar emotional experiences. Key number 3, kind assertiveness. It's not cruel. It's honesty without self-abandonment. And our one reflection question again: what relationships, emotional patterns, or identity roles in our lives may have been sustained more by our overfunctioning, emotional performance, and people-pleasing or self-abandonment than by genuine mutual connection? So if today's episode offered you clarity, grounding, or a pause for a cause you didn't know you needed, or if there's anything that I've shared today that pricked your heart or lit a spark, please subscribe, share this with someone you care about, and leave a comment so that this isn't a monologue, but a dialogue. And please leave a 5-star rating if you feel led, or send me a text. It helps this space to grow and reach others. Now let's close with one breath. We're going to inhale for 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. and again at 8 p.m. Central. This is Cut to the Chase at 8, C2TC 8. Her circle, high-performing, empowered women ready to thrive. I am Madison Samone Chase. Let's cut the noise. Let's get clear. Let's get ready, set, grow, and be great. Blessings to you and yours. Until tomorrow.